Glad you made it. So today's going to be a very important workshop, you know. It's exciting to be together and share some of the most important things about health and well-being. You know, we start out by saying that everything has to do with your alignment, and that's absolutely true. When your spine's in alignment, the power that God put in your brain can flow into your body better and allow your body to be healthy. And it's a great foundation to build on, but you know, we always say it's the start and not the end. But what we do know is that in order for your body to express health, there are certain laws that govern health. And when we know what those laws are, we can apply them when we get healthy. And of course, the number one law that applies to your health is the law of alignment. We talk about the importance of getting adjusted on a regular basis because there are factors that cause your spine to get knocked out of place. And we want to talk about some of those factors. You know, the number one factor that causes misalignments is physical stress, you know. So what's an example of physical stress? Falls, accidents, injuries, trauma, bad posture, sleeping the wrong way. And even stress itself can cause your spine to get knocked out of place. But you know, one of the things I came to realize after all these years being in practice, people say, Dr. Ray, you know, everybody is exposed to that, aren't they? And the answer is yeah. And that's why those regular weekly visits are extremely important. Because every time your body's exposed to stress and things get knocked out of place, it's cutting off the flow of life. And so what stress does to your body has to be undone. And a lot of times we have 10, 20, 30, 40 years of buildup and things come so far out of alignment that our body starts experiencing symptoms and medical conditions. But as our body gets better and better, you'll notice that the symptoms and the conditions are less and less. And our job is not only to get you healthy, but more importantly than getting healthy is staying healthy, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's the most important thing. You know what I find in all the years I've been in practice, and I've been in practice for 20 years, I find that most people, they know how to maybe get healthy, but staying healthy is another thing, isn't it? And so we need to not only get healthy, but stay healthy. And, you know, I had the opportunity for the last 20 years to do so many outside talks and speak to so many different groups of people. And I find that when I go into different places that there are people that know a portion of health, but they don't know the whole picture of how to put things together. And we always start by saying the spine is the fundamental foundation for all health and healing. But there are, and I want you to write these down or remember these, there are other factors you need to become aware of. And one of those main factors is a component we call chemistry. And chemistry has to do with the foods we eat. It has to do with the supplements or nutrition that we take. It has to do with the toxins that we're exposed to in the food, air, and water supply. And it has to do with hydration or other drinks that we may put in our body, including sodas and teas and all this kind of stuff that's really not that good for you. And so what I want you to become aware of is that there are certain foods that are useful and beneficial in health and healing, and there are certain foods that are detrimental. And oftentimes, in order to break it down, whether a food is good for you or not good for you, I say that you have to think of two components. Number one, you have to think about whether the food you're eating is giving your body energy, or does your body need energy to break it down? So, the foods that give your body energy are vegetables primarily, some fruits, and nuts and seeds. Why? Because they contain energy. So if you take in a vegetable that has energy, like, you know, we say the best way to take in vegetables is green juices. Like you juice kale and spinach and broccoli and cucumber, and then you drink it, it's going to give your body energy. And when your body has more energy, it can heal better. It has more energy, you can do more with it. So there are green juices is a great thing to take in on a daily basis. Plus, the thing about the juices is that they contain inside of them certain minerals and certain vitamins that are good for your body as well. But the key is that it gives my body energy. Okay, now, what kind of foods are going to make me tired? This is how you always know what kind of foods make you tired or not. If you eat food and then you get tired after. Right? Let me give you an example. Like anytime we overeat like a Thanksgiving meal and we have a big meal and then we're like, oh, we're ready to go to sleep. That's not giving your body energy. That's depleting energy. So meats tend to cause your body to be depleted. However, that being said, some of you need good fats and need protein in your diet. And when your body doesn't have it, you'll feel depleted. And you need to know that about yourself. You need to know whether or not when you have protein, a protein could be fish. For those of you that eat meat or animal protein, you may need that. However, I want you to know that the key is really to cut out one main group of foods. Anybody know what it is? Carbohydrates. You got it absolutely right. See, a lot of times I ask people if they have sugar in their diet, and they say, no, I don't eat any sugar, and then you find out they have rice. And see, what they don't know is that the rice they're eating, or the pasta you're eating, or the bread you're eating in your body breaks down to sugar. So it is sugar. It doesn't look like sugar. Rice don't look like sugar, right? If you say, hey, are you having sugar? They say, no, I just have rice. Or no, I just have bread. Or no, I just have potatoes. What they don't know is potatoes, bread, rice, remember this, are called carbohydrates, and your body breaks down carbohydrates to sugar. Starch and sugar are the same exact thing. And we really want to limit the amount of carbohydrates to about 50 grams. So what's the problem with carbohydrates? We're going to tell you right now. The biggest problem with carbohydrates is that when your body breaks it down in the cell, it creates inflammation. Your body literally, when it breaks it down, creates inflammation. So let me give you a good example of what this is like. It's like when you try to create a fireplace and you want to burn something, there are two ways to do that. One is in the chimney. You can put wood in there, and you put the fire on the wood, and what happens is this little smoke comes off, right? And that smoke in your body, when your cell metabolizes things, when it metabolizes sugar, is called oxidative stress. And that oxidative stress creates inflammation. And you know, so many times people have inflammation is the number one cause of all different types of disease. There are multiple causes why you have inflammation. One of them is a misalignment causing a block on the nerve. And number two is your eating regimen. You know how many people take anti-inflammatories? Advil, Tylenol, aspirin, Celebrex, prednisone. You know how many diseases have inflammation related to it? Let me give you an example. That's why they got all those itises. You ever hear somebody say, I got colitis, I got bronchitis, I got hepatitis, I got nephritis, I got arthritis. What does the word itis mean? Inflamed. So what are they telling you? They're telling you the part of their body that's inflamed. Nobody's telling them why it's inflamed. So you see, if somebody tells me their knees are inflamed, I say, okay, first thing we gotta do is get power flow in there, and that'll start bringing life, and when there's more life, there's less inflammation. But what if that person's eating pasta, bread, rice, potatoes all day? And then somebody tells them about turmeric. So they take this little tablet, right, of an anti-inflammatory, and they got like a big bowl of pasta, and they, oh, I'll just take the turmeric. No, it doesn't work that way. The father of modern medicine, his name was Hippocrates. You know what he said? Let your food be your medicine. But he also said this. He said, let your food be your medicine. He said, but to eat when you're sick is to feed your sickness. What does that mean? That means that there are times where your body needs to not eat as much food so that it can use the energy to heal your body. And there are times where different forms of fasting are extremely useful. And one of the forms of fasting is called intermittent fasting. This is where you stop eating at a set time and you go a long period of time before your next meal. How long? Minimum 15 hours. When I work on you during the week, there are certain things I do to prepare my body to be used properly. And I don't want to get too technical, but I do want to tell you this very important truth, that in your body, every cell, which makes up the tissues and the organs like liver, lungs, stomach, they have cells in them. Every cell is supposed to be vibrating at a certain frequency in order for it to be functioning properly. What tells the cell to vibrate is the power. So when the power from your brain can flow to the cell, everything vibrates better. There's a healthy vibration, and there's what? A sick vibration. A sick vibration is too slow. Or too fast, but usually it's too slow. So when you turn on the power, what happens? It starts vibrating better. Does that make sense? What happens when the cell vibrates better? The DNA works better. The communication between the cells is better. Your body starts making the right chemicals. When it's the wrong vibration, you don't do any of that. So here's the thing. If I'm having a lot of green juices, what's happening to my vibration? Better. What if I'm eating pasta, bread, rice, potatoes? Stress on the cell. it starts getting distorted. And that's how sickness comes about as well, okay? So when I'm working on patients on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, I go from dinner to dinner. What does that mean? I don't eat dinner until dinner. Like I didn't eat today yet. Like I've been fasting all day. Why? Because I know I have a talk and I want my energy to be what? Up. So if I had a big bowl of pasta and I came in here, I'd be like, sleeping over here. I wouldn't have no energy for you. So I got to keep my energy up. But it's the same energy that heals my body. Why? Because if I eat food and I got to use the energy to digest the food, the same energy I would have used to heal my liver, my lung, my stomach is now being used to break down food. So it's called, here's the key word, energy divergence. What does that mean? You took the energy that your body would have used to heal and you said, I need some of it to break down my food. So when somebody has a serious disorder, cancer, autoimmune disease, I say you really want your body to heal, you got to be mindful, and we put them on specific eating regimens that are made up of fasting and juicing. And the one thing you don't want to do for any of them is give them carbohydrates, because when the body has carbohydrates, it feeds the cancer cells. That's the last thing you want to give someone with cancer. But what does the doctor say? They might say, well, you're losing too much weight. You got to feed a lot. You got to eat a lot. And what they don't know is they're feeding their sickness. They're feeding their sickness. They're feeding the disease. They're feeding the disease. So what I want you to know is intermittent fasting is where you do. Now, some of you say, I can't go from night to night, right? You can go from night, from maybe 7, 8 p.m. to maybe 12 in the afternoon the next day, to maybe 1 p.m. the next day. Why would you do that? Well, here's a couple of reasons. Number one, the first thing that happens is your body needs fuel when you're not eating, right? So if it's not going to get fuel from food, where is it going to get it from? It's going to get it from what's inside your body. Well, let me give you some things that are inside. Number one, fat cells. Number two, abnormal cells, cancer cells, autoimmune cells, debris, bad skin cells. So what happens is your body's so smart, the innate wisdom that God put in there says, hey, if we need energy, let's go to everything bad first and let's use that as fuel. So guess what it starts doing? Detoxing and cleaning house. It starts using things like this. Watch this. It literally uses abnormal cells, abnormal skin cells, so your skin looks younger. That's how you get youthfulness. It uses things like abnormal stem cells, abnormal cancer cells that are in your body. And get this, it even uses bad bacteria and viruses as fuel. It's called xenophagy. Isn't that cool? So if there's, let's say, there's a pandemic. Like we were here during the pandemic, we were taking care of patients, right? So I wanted my body to be like very strong immune system wise because I know it was going to be exposed and I want to keep my body strong, right? So what did I do? Fast. Whenever I was working on patients, fasting. Why? Because I knew that if my body was in that state where it would use, if it needed fuel, it would use abnormal cells and it would use any sort of virus, bacteria as a fuel source. You ever wonder why when you're sick you don't feel like you're hungry? You think that's a coincidence? It's your creation. But you see, God is smarter than man. So God made your body to not be hungry, and what does man try to get you to do? Eat. God created cough. Why? Because you're trying to get rid of something, right? What does man create? Cough suppressants. See how that works? God created fever. Why? Because when you have a fever, what happens is you raise your temperature in your body. What's it do to the bacteria and virus? Kills it. Did you know that in order to kill a bacteria, your body has to rise to 102? But you can't kill viruses at that temperature. You have to get to 104 to kill viruses. A lot of people don't know that. So as soon as they get 103, they get scared. So God creates fever and man creates fever reducers, cough suppressants. So you say, Dr. Ray, so then is there ever a time where it's bad to have a high temperature? Yeah, it's always bad when you're not getting alignment. Because that's the brain not communicating right in the body. And if your temperature's high, it's because there's dysregulation going on. That means you're not at the normal temperature. But you can be having a good high temperature. I remember my first time I got adjusted. I was in school, and I was exposed to some sort of bacteria or virus. I remember feeling under the weather. And I said to the teacher, I said, I need to go home. And he said, lay down. I said, what? He said, lay down. He said, I'm going to adjust you. I said, okay. And he delivered an adjustment. Guess where? What's the most important area?
C1.
C1. He gave me a C1 adjustment. Immediately I broke out in sweats. Now most people would go, that's bad. But that fever and sweats came on right there. By the next morning, I was fully healthy. Amazing. Amazing. Why? Because he removed the interference. And what happens? Power. Power turned on like that. I never had my power turned on like that. I was like, wow, that was incredible. I never had an experience where one adjustment at C1 changed everything as far as my strength in my body, in my immune system. But here is the thing. If I went home that night and my body wasn't hungry, but let's say I just said I'm going to have a bowl of pasta, I'm going to have bread, I'm going to have potatoes, I'm going to have all that. Now my body's breaking down the food. It needs energy, so the energy that it would use to heal would be breaking down. Plus, I wouldn't be getting into xenophagy where my body's going to be burning that stuff off. It would slow down my healing. That's some truth, right? A lot of you never heard stuff like that, but it's the truth. The food you eat impacts your body in a very important way. You know how many people are taking supplements because they're counterbalancing what food is doing to them, not realizing it's the food they're putting in their mouth that's creating the sickness? So if you're not on low carbohydrate and you're wondering, how do I get on that? When you leave tonight, you're going to text the front desk, and what they'll do is they'll send you the video link for a low carbohydrate eating regimen. I believe everyone needs to be on low carbohydrate. America, this country, has more sugar in it than any other country, but not like you think. It's not only sugar, it's starch. We have a very high carbohydrate diet. Very high. And that's why diabetes is so prevalent. That's why high blood pressure. Did you know diabetes can also lead to high blood pressure? How? Because when you have a lot of sugar in your blood becomes what? Thick. So it has to pump harder. When it pumps harder, your blood pressure goes up. Did you know that high blood sugar in your diet, a lot of starch, can lead to high cholesterol? You know the days that when I used to graduate school, they used to think that cholesterol was just about fat. They used to say, oh, if you have bad fat, that's how you get cholesterol. Well, they found out that's actually incorrect. There are fats that are good and there are fats that are bad. And if you have good fats, it can actually help you lower cholesterol. But they also found out that having too much sugar in your diet causes high cholesterol. How does that work? You know the drug they give? What's the name of the drug they give for cholesterol-reducing drugs? It's called Zocor or Lipitor. And they go out the ORs at the end, or the statins. That's how you know they're called statins, right? Well, how do they work? Well, you see what they do is inside your liver, there's an enzyme. The name of the enzyme is called HMG-CoA reductase. I don't like to get too technical, but I got to share with you. Sometimes people think the only thing I know is C1. So I got to give you a little bit and let you know, hey, you know what? There's a lot more than C1 I know. I've been studying health and wellness for about 30 years now. And when I say studying, like everything I do, I press in all the way. So when I study, like I want to know. I want to know everything related to health and wellness. And you know, so people say, Dr. Ray, what makes you so different? It's not only 8 years of graduate school, but it's 650 seminars. I've studied everything you can think of related to health, including chemistry, very well. And so here's the thing I want you to know. We're talking about cholesterol for a second. Because this is important. A lot of your friends and family are diagnosed with high cholesterol. They're on drugs and they think they're fine. Here's what they don't know. Your liver's job is to make sure that if there's too much sugar in the blood, it converts some of it to cholesterol. Why? Because if you have too much sugar in your bloodstream and it gets to your brain, it can cause you to have a stroke. So your body's trying to defend. It says, hey, we got way too much starch and sugar coming in. And it tells the liver, says, hey, you know what? The brain tells the liver, make some cholesterol from this. So there's an enzyme your liver makes. It's called HMG-CoA reductase. And what its job is to do is to take the sugar coming in, the starch coming in, convert it to cholesterol as fast as you can. So what does the drug do? It stops that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's a bad thing. Why? Because now you have a lot of sugar still coming in. So the person on the cholesterol-reducing drug, what's one of the side effects? Diabetes. How many people who are on cholesterol-reducing drugs know that diabetes is a side effect? And how? How is it's not a random thing that happens. It's because if you're still not changing your eating, listen closely, that sugar's got to go somewhere. If it's not being converted to cholesterol, it's going to go in the bloodstream the way it is. That's how you get high blood sugar. See how that something's got to happen with it. So what's the real answer? Cut out the starch, go on low carb. You see how that works? So when patients have high blood pressure, when they have high cholesterol, when they have diabetes, in addition to their adjustments, what do? We get them on a low carb, and we get them juicing. Right? Make sense so far?
Yes.
All right. Chemistry. I can go on for hours about it. You know, we did a workshop. It was called the 7 Hidden Toxins. You get exposed to toxins in the food, air, water. You need to know what they are so you could avoid them. I'll give you a tip or two. One of the main things that you can be exposed to is aluminum. I don't know if you guys know, but deodorants have aluminum in them. You want to make sure you're not putting aluminum directly into your pores. So if you're using aluminum type deodorant, you need to stop that. Also, another toxin you're exposed to is fluoride. It's man-made synthetic fluoride. It's not the same as the natural fluoride, but a lot of the toothpastes have synthetic fluoride, which is extremely toxic to the brain. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, can affect your brain in a very toxic way. Also, I want to give you another very important one. Mercury is a very big one. And mercury can come from a lot of, they used to give dental amalgam fillings in the teeth, and they think it's only in their teeth. There's a study that showed that it leaks out into the brain. So there's direct effect there. I'm telling you some things that are very important. Where else do you get mercury? People are concerned about the fish, you know, right? So fish has a little, how did it get in the fish? Because we kept dumping mercury in the water. Well, the water didn't have mercury to begin with. It was us that dumped a whole bunch of mercury in the water that created that problem. So where else can you get exposed to a toxin? I'm going to give you one that most people have never considered: lead. Did you know that lead continues on through a mother's placenta from generation to generation? They say up to 4 generations. So for those of you that have never done any intermittent fasting or juicing, one of the main reasons why we do that is it also helps dump a whole bunch of toxins out of our body. And you say, well, I don't know any toxins that I was exposed to. If you live on this planet, you're exposed to toxins. So every 3 months or so, it's good to do some fasting and juicing. If not every day. Okay? So far, so good. So what did we say? Alignments are number 1. Make sure never let a week go by without an adjustment. What would happen if you got adjusted and then you just stopped? You go right back to where you were and worse. So it's very important you continue on a weekly schedule. Never let a week go by without an adjustment. It helps your body adjust to your environment better. As you adjust, your spine gets stronger and stronger. Your nerve system gets stronger and stronger. And you're able to adapt. Number 2, chemistry. What do we got in there? Low carbs, juices. I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you, by the way, tonight. Intentionally. Because if you walk out of here with 1 or 2 or 3 great ideas, your life is going to be changed. Okay? Every time you come to a workshop, the intention is not just to hear the message, but to do something with it, right? So I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you so that you can take 1 or 2 or 3 things, start changing it right away on Monday, and start noticing change. You just keep adding. Can you imagine if somebody came in on their first visit and I just threw everything I knew at them? I don't. I give them the right foundation, right? It's kind of like spoon feeding. You want to make sure that they take it in, and they have time to apply it, and then you give them a little bit more, time to apply a little bit more, and that's what it is. It's a process of learning. Learning is a process. Health is a process. We want to make you understand health so well that you can take care of your family with it. Isn't that right? Because, you know, there's always one in the family that gets the opportunity to change the whole family. So that's why we want to give you the right information so that you become that person. Understanding alignment is first. Number 2, chemistry. Okay, number 3. It's a big one. It's a big one. Stress. Now, I want to teach you about stress because a lot of people don't know how stress works, you know, but there's different forms of stress, and stress affects different things in your body. Number 1, there's 2 parts to your brain that I want to mention. Number 1 is called your conscious brain, and what's the other one called? Your subconscious brain. All the years of trauma in your life, all the stresses, childhood wounds, all of that is stored in your subconscious. So a lot of times people don't know why they're anxious or why they can't sleep, or why their body is in this stress response. And it could be a lot of times because there are unresolved traumatic experiences that they live through that their body never had the time to process. This is the key word, process. When it comes to stress, we need to learn how to process stress. Let me give you a little background about myself. I don't know if a lot of you know this or not, but I was actually born in Tehran, Iran. I was 3 years old when my family decided to move to America. The reason we left is that there was a revolution. And my dad was on a blacklist to be killed, his entire family. And the reason why is he used to deal with the construction vehicles with the army. He used to sell construction vehicles. And so he was on a blacklist to be killed because the government was overthrown during a revolution. So can you imagine? That was a little stressful. You know, I still remember, because I was only 3, but here's what I remember. I remember driving to the airport, and I thought people were throwing candy at the window, so I wanted to roll down the windows. And my mom wouldn't let me roll them down. And I found out years later that that wasn't candy, those were rocks. and that in the middle of a revolution, cars were being torched on fire, and there was all this chaos. And, I was the youngest of 3 kids, thank God, so I didn't remember or recall a lot of that. But I can tell you, we caught the last plane out of that country before they shut down all the airports. We came to America. It was 1979. I had 2 brothers, one of which was 10 years older than me. The other one was 12 years old. That puts them right about high school. They went into Brooklyn, one of the toughest neighborhoods there was, without speaking a word of English during the Iran POW controversy. And so because they were Persian or Iranian, even though they were in this country because they fled the revolution, they would get a lot of abuse from the kids there because they thought that they were part of the reason why their family were being captured was because of my 2 brothers, in their mind. The trauma that my brother endured destroyed his life in so many different ways. Caused all sorts of physical, mental, emotional disruptions. He suffered significantly because of all the memories that are in his subconscious. I suffered the least because I was only 3 years old. My father, one of the main reasons why he got sick was because he endured that. He came to a new country at 50 years old with 4 kids. I was the youngest, 3 years old, didn't speak a word of English, and had to figure out how to survive. In addition to that, my father took a year to go back to the country and to see what was happening to his friends because a lot of his friends were missing. And he would find out sometimes that some of those friends got killed, captured and killed. Other ones were in jails that nobody knew about, and he would have to go to their families and report back. So you can imagine the trauma that somebody endures. As you live life, sometimes we forget the trauma that you've been through. We also forget that generational trauma can affect you. Did you guys know that? Did you know that they did research studies and they find out that inside your DNA, there are memories from past generations that are being carried forth? Why? Because the DNA carries vibrations. And when you have a child, your DNA and your significant other's DNA is what makes up that child. Your DNA actually has memory. Vibration memory. So generational wounds can carry forward. When you study the scripture, they talk about generational sin. But there's also generational wounds that need to be healed. You know what we call those? You say, oh, that just runs in my family. We just get angry a lot. Or we just get sad a lot. Or, I don't know, but we get anxious a lot. Yeah, I know. It runs in your family. You have a generational wound that hasn't been healed. So if we're going to really get people well now, I'm throwing a lot at you, right? But it's very important you understand that stress is a very big component. And sometimes when people think of stress, they think of stress right now. So it's like, no, I'm fine now. I'm in America now. I'm fine, right? Yeah, but all that stuff hasn't been processed. And it's all causing, your subconscious can either feel safe or unsafe. So if you go through traumatic experiences like that and they're left unprocessed, it's feeling unsafe all the time. You ever wonder why certain people just react to things? You're like, what are they reacting about? It's not even a big deal, right? And you go, what kind of reaction is that? Like they thought it was like a life or death thing. Well, it's not. Yeah, but the subconscious remembers the things that are. And they never healed from them. They never healed from them. I'll tell you some other things that are in your subconscious. Anything having to do with hurt. When I came to this country, we went to Brooklyn, New York was where I lived. I was 3 years old. I was thrown into a school where I couldn't speak good English. My mom and dad were working all day, so they couldn't teach me. And there were a lot of kids that would make fun of me because I didn't speak English. And so I remember having a lot of hurt. I know how to turn to God for healing, that's for sure. So I turned to food. And I remember at the end of the day, I'd run to like a pizza store and McDonald's and try to eat as much as I could. Sometimes we use food as an idol. What do I mean by that? You use food for pleasure or comfort. People say, I need that food. I need it. No, you need God. Because it's only the power of God that can heal the hurt. But there are ways to activate that through prayer. A lot of times I pray over my patients. Why do I do that? Because I want whatever's in that soul, that all those memories to be healed. Because it's a scientific fact that what's in the subconscious creates a fight or flight response. And when you're in a fight or flight response, it creates sickness and disease in your body. And even though we're adjusting you, and even if you're eating right, if that stress is left unresolved and uncorrected, it can cause continual problems in your life. High blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol. Guys, hurt in your heart left unprocessed leads to bitterness too, until it creates sickness and disease. So here's what I'm going to have you do tonight. For some of you, this is speaking to your heart. You need to leave here today and think of all the people that you haven't forgiven or where your past hurts are. And anyone that you're bitter toward. You know, sometimes we think, no, we forgive them, but that's because they're not around. The true test of forgiveness is when they're in your presence. Can you be okay with what they did? Some are easier than others, right, guys? But you know everything. This is what I want you to write down. I want you to start taking inventory of what it is that's left unprocessed in you. You're going to need to heal from that. One by one, you're going to need to heal from that. You know, one of the ways that I heal, for those of you, it's called soul soaking. How many of you heard of soul soaking before? Okay, so here's the thing. I'll give you someone who's got really good soul soaks. Her name's Katie Souza. Katie's Katie. Souza is Souza. She has a lot of audios and MP3 on her website, and it's Katie Souza Ministries, I believe. And she has one on bitterness that's really powerful, and she'll take you through different activations to heal from those hurts inside. I'll tell you another really cool way that heals it. Praise and worship.
Yeah, I do that.
Because the presence of healing happens through praise. Isn't that incredible? There's a power that starts healing you, diffuses into your soul as you start praising and worshiping God. I'm going to give you a couple more. Stillness. Some of you, when things get crazy, you get busy. You do the exact opposite because you want to control something. So you're like, I can't control anything going on in my life. At least I can control cooking and cleaning and doing this and doing that. You run around and start cleaning everything. Let me give you some really important information. That's just distracting how you're really feeling. It's a distraction. So what do you do instead? Oh my gosh. You sit in stillness in nature. Why nature? Because everything's praising God, and being around that is going to be healing for you. Did you know everything in the world is praising God?
Yeah.
Trees, grass. So if you're around that, you just be part of that healing. And it gives you the time to tell your mind to stop. Relax. Be still. Be still. Be still and know that I'm God. Stillness is extremely important. We live in a hustle-bustle world, and so many times we don't take time to do it. I'm giving you the things I do on a daily basis that allow me. When I put my hand on someone, I want to be the best vessel for God to use. Because you know what we're talking about is the healing of the soul. And you know, in science, the soul is made up of many parts. I want you to understand the soul is made up of what we call the mind, the conscious and the subconscious. What else is in the mind? The intellect. What else is in the mind? The reasoning mind. What else is in the mind? The memories. What else is in the mind? The desire centers, called the amygdala. Passion centers, called the amygdala. This is all the mind. So, but the soul is also made up of what we call the will. Your ability to make your own decisions. It's also made up of your emotions. Well, where are the emotions get stored? A lot of times they get stored in your body. The vibration of emotions affect your body. Remember we said there's a certain vibration that's healthy? You ever notice like sometimes you can look at somebody and say they're heavy. But you know that's not all just a food. You know there's heaviness from emotion. Because what they shove down deep with their food is still in there. All those emotions are still causing a block, and it creates heaviness. Heaviness. Sometimes people that carry a lot of responsibility have heaviness. Isn't that right? Because it's like if you got no responsibility, it's easy to be light. Remember when you were a kid and you're like a teenager, you got no responsibility at all? It's like, oh yeah, everything's great, you know? And then you got like one thing, and now you got all these responsibilities. How do you stay light through that? That is the key. How do you stay light serving others and taking on responsibility? And what I'm giving you is the strategies that are necessary to do it. Number 1, the foods that we eat. Number 2, soul soaking. Number 3, praise and worship. Number 4, prayer. Number 5, service. Number 6, staying in stillness. You know, before I came into this room, I was in the car. Sometimes I wonder if anyone looks at me in the car. Because, you know, I'm in the car, I'm like staying still, and I might be listening to some praise music. I'm doing all these things to get ready to serve the people I'm about to serve. Okay, one more thing I want to say about stress, okay? Very important. There are two types of stress, what we call cognitive and emotional. Cognitive has a lot more to do with thinking stress, too much thinking. Just so you know that neurologically speaking, when you have too much cognitive stress, a couple of things manifest. Number one, you get cold hands. So for those of you that have cold hands, that's an indication you have too much cognitive stress. Very important. A lot of times, some of you, you know, you can tell a lot by shaking someone's hand. You shake their hand, you know a lot about what's going on. Number one, you feel if it's cold or not. So you know they got too much cognitive stress. One of the key ways to release the stress response is also diaphragmatic breathing. And so I created this audio program called Dr. Ray's Audios that's accessible to any of you who need it. And one of the things it does, it takes you through breathing patterns that release the stress response. And it also has something called progressive muscle relaxation, where you squeeze muscles and relax muscles to reset the stress response. That works too sometimes. But I'll tell you, the greatest thing is just being in stillness more. Being in nature more. And you know, sometimes it's cold out, so people say, I don't want to be in nature, it's too cold. I stay in my car. I'll go to the park right here, Eisenhower Park, and I'll just sit there for 30 minutes and just get still. That's why there's a stillness on me. There's a spirit on me. The Spirit of God's on me because I take the time to connect. And I don't want to do anything without God. I don't want to do anything on my own. I don't want to touch. I don't want to speak. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go home to my children without the Spirit of God on me. Because I know I can be the best father I could be when I have the Spirit of God on me. And so I know that it's important to heal from these hurts. And I know that I can't use, like I used to use, food and different things as a means of healing. But I really needed to start understanding healing more. You know why? Because I was just speaking to a patient earlier today. Year after year after year, you live more life. You got more stuff in there. You got more stuff than you had before. People say, well, when I used to get stressed, it didn't bother me. And now it bothers me. Well, yeah, because you never processed all that stuff and you got this stuff. You got the stuff from present day, you got the stuff when a kid, you got all the different life you live. So if we're not taking the time to counterbalance and heal our body from the hurts that are happening lifetime, it just builds and builds and builds. You ever wonder why people get sick? They think it's age. It's wrong. It's misalignments, it's the foods that we're eating, it's the stress that we're not healing from. But when we start implementing better strategies in our day, so what are some strategies that you can take away to help you process stress? It could be taking more time to be still daily. Just set your time, you know. When I don't get up out of bed, by the way, I take 3 hours to prepare for my day, sometimes 4. And then at night, I take about 2 hours to prepare. Everything I do is carefully thought through to be the best vessel I could be to serve people. Like I would never just roll out of bed and show up somewhere. And I get up way before my family does. Because I know once the family's up, there can be distractions there. Right? So sometimes people say you need sleep. Yeah, to a degree you do. But if you have a whole bunch of unprocessed emotions, you won't sleep well anyway. If you have a bunch of cognitive thoughts in your mind, stressful thoughts, you won't sleep well anyway. And you know, I'd rather be up and be in stillness, be up and be in praise and worship and being filled with the presence of God in my life, or be up and be praying than just be sleeping, which feeds the flesh but not the spirit. It's a very important understanding there. Sometimes what makes us strong in the spirit is actually not enjoyable in the flesh, including fasting and juicing. I remember saying to somebody, you know what's important to juice? They go, but I like food. I said, I know you do. I said, but your body is not healing because of it. Because food is not meant to be for comfort, it's meant to be for fuel. But when we don't know where else to get comfort, oh my gosh, it can get dangerous. You know, that's why people reach for cigarettes and alcohol. And there's nothing wrong, you know, for me, there's nothing wrong with somebody eating 1 day a week the food they want. It's just a matter of knowing what's happening. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, I'm not going to have a big meal and then come in here and serve people. That would be crazy, you know? I wouldn't get it. And by the way, let me say this, one more thing about stress. This is a very important one. We're starting to wrap it all up. I know we covered a lot of information. One more very important thing about stress. What comes in your eyes, ears, and out of your mouth has a lot to do with stress. You know, the world wants to tell you their vision. It's called television. They're telling you their vision. And you get around things that are outside the world. You know, because we're in the world, but not of the world. And we're meant to be the light in the darkness. Now, how can we carry light when we're dark on the inside? Our body's got to be full of light. So we got to take the time to be mindful, be kind. And you know, the words that come out of our mouth, our words are so powerful. They can either be a poison or they can be life to another, including yourself. Sometimes we speak this way, we don't realize it's going in our mind. What you speak out is affecting your subconscious. You know how many people speak death over themselves all the time by speaking about a problem continually? You know, I tell my patients, and this is an important realization, I say write down your problems on a sheet of paper. If you have a problem that you want to express, write it down. Your speech, listen closely, your speech was meant to be used to create more than it was to communicate. That's what we've forgotten in this country, in this world. Our speech is used to create, because we're supposed to decree a thing, and it shall be established. So if I'm going around speaking what's wrong continually, guess what I get? More of what's wrong. I start believing in what's wrong. I start thinking what's wrong. And as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So I start believing for what's wrong. And then what's wrong keeps showing up. And then we keep talking about what's wrong. And then we get out on our phones and we talk to our friends about what's wrong. And then we get on Facebook and we talk about what's wrong. And then we come to the practice or the office and we talk about what's wrong. And then we go to our family and we talk about what's wrong. And then we what? I don't understand why nothing's changing. If we only put that much energy into what's right? It says focus and meditate on things of good report. Yeah. Good report. Anything worth praiseworthy, focus in on that. Right? Be worried about nothing, pray on everything, and focus on things that are praiseworthy, things of good report. You know, sometimes we say something that's good once and we think they got it, but if it's something wrong, we say it over and over and over and over again, right? We got to reverse that. You got to reverse that. If there's something good, say the same thing over and over. Somebody says, you already said that. I say, I know, but I'm speaking it because I want more of that. You see? Whatever we speak of, we impress on the inside in our subconscious and we start believing for. What are you believing for? You ever ask yourself that? What are you believing for? If you're having trouble with finances, if you're having trouble with relationships, how many of us speak death over the person that is challenging in our life, but the more we speak about what they're doing wrong, the more they show up that way? Because we're confirming it. And then we confirm it and say, see, I told you. Well, yeah, you're really good at creating. No, it's not me. Yeah, it is, because I can show you somebody else that thinks that person's a loving person. So it's the ability to see them differently. It's the ability to believe differently. A lot of times the power is there. A lot of times the power is in our ability to create with our mouth. Right? Everything we do for God. And the most important thing is that He is the healer. And so you see, I tell patients all the time, I move the bone, God does the healing. And you know, I remember when I first got out of practice, people didn't like that. You know, we had patients that didn't like, thank God that's not the case anymore. But I'd had patients challenge me, well, you shouldn't use the word God in a healthcare facility. And you know what? I think that we need to use the word God everywhere. Everywhere. And I came to realize that, you know, if I want to have a better relationship with God and hear His mystery and His secrets to health and healing, I better have a very close relationship with Him. And I think we need to bring God back into the schools, and I think we need to bring back into the government and bring it back. Yeah, praise God. And you know, my son was born this past weekend, and he was born in Tennessee. And what was really interesting is that when we went to the hospital in Tennessee and my son was born, one of the doctors in the elevator said, hey, are you here because you have a newborn? I said, yeah. I said, I just had a baby boy. He said, congratulations. I said, yeah, praise God. And he said, praise the Lord. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Like in different states, they actually praise God, you know? And then he was telling me, this is a medical doctor in the pediatric unit. This is a Tennessee University, University of Tennessee Medical Center. And he says to me that every morning him and his staff get together and they pray. Yeah. And you know, we do that. A lot of times, you know, when our office is open on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, we open at a set time, right? 9:45, we open the door. People say, why don't you open it earlier? Because we're creating the atmosphere. And so we're in prayer. We're praying. We're praying over the people. We're praying for the people that are coming in, that they receive healing, that they receive power, and they receive glory, and that they receive blessing, and they receive provision. And so we're praying over you guys, and we're creating the atmosphere, and we're setting it right. Guys, have a great night.
Thank you.
We're going to end on that note. I'll see you guys in the next workshop. Thank you, everybody.